Hi, I'm Femi OK. Welcome to the stream. This episode is all about black cowboys and black cowgirls of America. If you're doing a double take right now, I don't blame you. The history of African-American cowboys and cowgirls, you have to dig really deep to find it. And why is that? That's one question we'll be asking on today's show. But there is a new movie out right now that looks at the urban city cowboys of Philadelphia, African-American cowboys and cowgirls. That film is called Concrete Cowboy. You can take a look at it right now. Let's have a look.
50% of all cowboys were black. Even the Lone Ranger were black.
Who's the Lone Ranger?
Really? Pop, you teaching this boy anything?
The history here is deep. We like the Wild West out here.
I woke up to the morning sky first. Baby blue, just like we rehearsed. I know you. You hops boy. When I get up off this ground, I should get back down. Your daddy got rules that you're not abiding by.
Yo, what you doing?
You want to ride the street life? You can't be in my house. You want to wise up? You welcome back.
Welcome back to what? I ain't got no home here.
That's your choice.
In the walk, I'll be shaded by the tree.
Be alone out here, man. I'm gonna get my money, and I'm gonna get up out of here. You with me or not, bro?
But them streets done made you a man overnight. I'm your father.
You ain't my father! I mean, you a father to everyone else out here.
Oh, you hate me, man.
Hello, Ricky. Hello, Greg. Hello, Erin. All connected to Concrete Cowboy in one way or another. They're about to tell you what their connection is. Ricky, introduce yourself to our international audience. Good to have you.
Yes, I'm Ricky Staub, writer and director of Concrete Cowboy.
Hello, Greg. Good to see you. Introduce yourself. What's your connection?
My name is Greg Neri. I am the author of the young adult novel Ghetto Cowboy, on which the film was based on.
Nice to have you. Hello, Erin. Welcome to the stream. I think this may be a first. Erin, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and your connection to the movie.
I am Erin Brown. I am the director of Philadelphia Urban Riding Academy and also one of the original Fletcher Street Riders.
So nice to have you. There is, Erin, a whole conversation that this movie has started about black cowboys and black cowgirls. And I feel it's an issue that if you know, you know. But if you don't and you want to talk to Erin and Greg and Ricky, the best thing to do is jump into YouTube comment section and you two can be part of today's show. So, Erin, if you know, you know. If you don't, how do you start that conversation, Erin?
Starting a conversation about black cowboys and black cowgirls is something that has been not mainstream. So I guess you have to see it and the conversation begins there.
I'm just looking.
Yeah, you really have to see it to believe it. I think a lot of people have that same reaction. You know, even little kids I see in those neighborhoods, when they see a cowboy, a cowgirl riding by on a horse, they just have this look on their face like, you know. And, you know, a common thing I heard, even people I know who live in Philadelphia their whole lives, maybe even 2 miles away from this neighborhood, never knew about this whole world because there's a certain perception about Strawberry Mansion, and it's not this.
So Strawberry Mansion is an area in Philly, and that's where this film takes place. But Greg, before I move on to Ricky, who tells the story in a movie, you also told the story in a young adult book that was incredibly popular. And this is a picture that inspired you. Let me just show it to everybody, and you tell everybody what you saw and what you felt when you saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I came across this photo essay in Life magazine, and you know, one of the first images inside was a young black boy standing on top of a horse in clearly what was the inner city. And, you know, you have that same reaction that those kids have, which is like, what is this, you know? And you start flipping through these photos, you see, you know, black cowboys in Philadelphia. What is going on? And to me, that's where a story lies, because, you know, why there are black cowboys and horses in North Philly, you know, that why is the story. I mean, things don't just happen by accident. There's a reason. and I wanted to know what it was. And so I just started digging. And at the time, put it into Google, and like nothing came up. Nobody had written about it. There were no articles, no documentaries, nothing, no books. And so to me, that is something, as I started to slowly find out, make my way into that world, like this is something people need to know about, because not only was it surprising, but I thought it was, beautiful and heroic. And, these were voices that needed to be heard.
Ricky, go ahead. Tell us about your journey, your discovery of black cowboys and black cowgirls.
Mine is very similar. I mean, there's actually a scene in the movie, it's in the trailer as well, that I feel like really articulates my own experience as what Greg is talking about, where there's this young little boy and his mom on a bus and they see the riders coming by. And I really wanted it to paint, even particularly where it is in the movie, this beauty, but also this lostness that they're facing of like, what if this community wasn't here? And what if there weren't these little boys that could see these cowboys riding? But for me, I had a very similar experience where my first introduction to the cowboys in North Philly was a gentleman riding in a tricked out buggy outside my office, which is less than a mile from Fletcher Street. And yeah, it had speakers and these huge tires with rims. It was fascinating, let alone that a horse was pulling it.
Yeah.
And he was the one that told me about Fletcher Street. And then a Google search, like what Greg said, I didn't find much, but I did find at that time Greg's book, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, I think it was published in 2011, because I remember in 2012 was when I read the book, and I earmarked it and be like, man, one day that would be an amazing movie when I'm ready to make movies. And so, it wasn't then until 2017, actually, when I met Eric Miller. Was the first cowboy I met in court, actually. My production company hires adults returning home from incarceration. Eric had been home a week and told the judge that he had already purchased a horse, which I found quite fascinating. You don't hear that every day in court. And Erin was one of Eric's best friends, and I met her shortly after, and we talked about, what can we do? Even then in 2017, knowing the perils that Fletcher Street were facing, what can we do to create a permanent home for these cowboys and cowgirls all over Philadelphia who have been displaced?
I loved when we showed that little boy with the horse, and Erin, I could hear the vocal admiration when you saw that picture, that Life magazine picture. I want to play you something.
That picture, sorry.
Go ahead.
That picture, that is a young guy named Reds. He was one of my first original kids. He followed me around the stable, and he took care of my horses. And I watched him grow up. He's 24, 25 now, and I called him my son, honestly.
All right, so the story I want to play to you, and we're sort of tap dancing around the edge of this, is but why do we not know? Why do you have to work so hard to find out about a piece of American history and also contemporary American life that we should know about? Here's Jennifer. Here's her thoughts. Let's have a listen.
I really enjoyed Concrete Cowboys. I grew up in Houston, Texas, so black cowboys and rodeos and seeing black folks ride horses on city streets that also hold cars is nothing new to me. But this was my first introduction into that rich tradition in Philadelphia's black community. What I've been sitting with since I saw the film yesterday is the cruelty that has to be involved to take what little bit of that tradition is left there in Philadelphia. And I just think it's another example of how our place in that rich history continues to be whitewashed.
Greg, what happened? Erin, then Greg. Everyone's going to jump in on this one. Erin, you start. Greg, then you finish.
Once upon a time, I mean, she's absolutely right. There were maybe about 35, 40 backyard stables where the urban black cowboy kept their horses. And we never owned these facilities, and they are, with redevelopment, gentrification, we had no control but to migrate to different stables. And it's a piece of our history being washed away every time it happens. And I've experienced it myself on Fletcher Street. And, a lot of these Fletcher Street horsemen, riders, our family, when a stable closes down, we open up the doors and they've all migrated there. And these voices are horsemen. They are what make up our community. They aren't, there's nothing to bring them together like a club or anything. We're just, holding on, and we need something that's really ours to keep, that can't be taken away from us, because it is important history in Philadelphia. We would ride to different stables just to meet up, and that's not happening anymore.
Right, go
because
ahead.
there's barely any left.
Yeah. I mean, I think for people of color, there's just like a history of hidden figures that have never been recognized across the board. And what I tell, I work with a lot of young people, and what I tell them is you can't blame people for not knowing what they don't know, because they're only given a certain narrative. So it's up to us, to you, to change that narrative, to use your voice, to tell your own stories, to get those voices out there and represented. So, it's just like there's so many cultures like this one, all these people who live within a couple of miles and never know about it. And the reason is there's a perception on the news like, oh, this is the most dangerous neighborhood in North Philly. You're not going to go there. You're going to avoid it. And structurally it's built so you never have to interact with it. Even if you live, within a couple miles of it, it's easy to avoid. And so therefore, there's no ways to interact with this culture unless you find out about it, unless those stories start to get told and start to penetrate deeper, and people want to actually go there because it's like, oh, what is this? Let's check that out.
I feel, Ricky, after COVID, people are going to be hanging out. They're just going, this is where Idris Elba was, and hanging out there. I feel like it's going to be almost like a movie place where everyone goes just to check out the location. So Erin's going to be turning people away. I love this here on my laptop. Concrete Cowboy hit #1 on Netflix on Easter just this past weekend. #1 film. Ricky, what did you set out to do in the telling of this film? Many people are watching this show right now. In fact, Liz Rainey is watching this on YouTube. She says, I have never heard of black cowboys and cowgirls. There are going to be a lot of people who you're going to be blowing their minds right now, including Americans. Right. So what did you set out to do?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is, to be honest, what we set out to do is what we've accomplished, which was, when I met Eric, one of the things he told me was that when he was growing up, he loved Westerns and he loved these films, but there were no black cowboys represented in those stories. And so what he wanted to be able to leave for the youth that, he was teaching and his own kids was to have a movie that showed black cowboys, to give kids something to look for. And so to be able to see that representation happen in this film is a huge source of joy for me. Also he was well aware 4 years ago that Fletcher Street was facing gentrification issues. I mean, even to hear you say that, like currently right now, the corral, the beautiful field where all the horses graze in the film is completely fenced off and dug up. The city is currently building affordable housing units. And so, something that we've done with Aaron is to actually, originally we established a nonprofit with Eric called the Philadelphia Urban Riding Academy. Eric, unfortunately, was killed a week before we went into prep on the film, tragically. And, his legacy is now living on through Aaron and through all the cowboys and cowgirls in that film, to help find a home for, all the cowboys and cowgirls across Philadelphia that no longer have to be displaced permanently. Like, it's important that they own the land, they own the barn, because every time the city gives them something, it's taken away. It's only a matter of time. And so, I'm proud of them for seeing this through with us. It's been, a 4-year journey at this point, and it's going to continue. And thankfully, we're on this beautiful side of it. I was thrilled to wake up on Sunday morning to see that it was #1. My phone was exploding.
What did your face do, Ricky?
Celebrate.
Ricky, what did your face do when you saw your phone?
It did that. I was like, what? I was texting. I mean, everyone was texting me. I didn't even have to text everyone. I was
Your
just
phone,
like, oh my God.
blew up. All right, so this film,
exploding.
it's on Netflix right now, so you can watch it on Netflix. A little bit of the storyline. So it's a fictional story. It's based on Greg's book, but it is based on real-life urban cowboys, not just ones in Philadelphia, but ones in Brooklyn and all around the United States, where people don't realize that they're still there. So there's a question here for you.
Really,
go ahead, Ricky. No, Ricky, you're number one. You have to go first. Ricky,
it was really cool to see, like, I was trying to, like, respond to people on Instagram, and there's this cowboy in Burbank, a black cowboy, a community of black cowboys, and they actually all gathered at their barn to watch the film on opening night. He was sending me pictures, and it's cool to see, you know, other cowboys and cowgirls around Philly. But yeah, these communities do exist across the country and do face the same perils that Fletcher Street is facing. And so, it was really special.
When the book came out, you know, and I traveled around the country, what I thought was this little subculture that existed in Philly. You know, black writers came out to see me everywhere, from New York to LA to Seattle, Tampa, Chicago, St. Louis, like every corner of the United States, they would come out to see me on their horses, you know, teenagers and adults. And it was a really beautiful thing. It's like, oh, okay, this is like a real thing. And then you start to find out about, you know, this incredibly rich history of black cowboys in the Old West, you know, and where, you know, 1 in 4 cowboys were black, and Bass Reeves may have been the basis for the Lone Ranger and all these stories. And it's pretty remarkable.
We're giving a lot of people an assignment, Greg, Erin, and Ricky, at the end of this show, because they're going to be going off and searching for black cowboys and black cowgirls. This is Kayada. She is a school teacher, Greg, and she has a question precisely for you. Have a listen and then answer right off the back of her video comment.
So a little bit of a backstory. My students and I, over the past few years, have read Ghetto Cowboy in book clubs, and my students were actually scheduled to have an author visit with Mr. Neri last year, but due to unforeseen circumstances, he was unable to attend. So this is exciting. I still get to pose one of their questions. So Mr. Neri, my students would like to know, what was the hardest part about changing your book into a film? A lot of times authors are very close to their work, and now when you have a film that you're going to make, you have other people who give their input. So what was the most challenging part during that whole process?
Well, luckily for Ricky, I started off as a filmmaker, so I knew the difference between a book and a movie, and that anyone who literally translates the book is not going to end up with a good movie, probably. So to me, the most important thing is to, if you say yes to a filmmaker, that you let them do their job and try not to bug them too much. And so for me, it was mostly like his production company was in the area. He knew the community. He understood the issues. You know, the most important thing that, you know, he wanted to honestly represent this community and its people and the issues they deal with. And, you know, he had an interest in social justice and all these things that I was interested in. And so to me, like, I could see he had the same instincts and the same drive and reasons to tell this story. So, you know, once I heard that, then it was like, yes, go ahead. You know, of course I'll say some things, but, you know, I didn't ever expect him to actually do any of those suggestions. As long as I just said them, it's okay.
So Greg, I'm going to bring this up because it's obvious when we look at all three of you that your culture and your background is going to be different from Greg's, going to be different from Erin. So Nuri asks here on YouTube, people should be telling their own history. You don't have to wait for someone to tell the world your history. The way that you worked, Ricky, was really interesting. The way that you got into the community. There is a phrase in the States about, is this person going to be invited to the cookout? You went to many cookouts, and I think your cookout card is good for the rest of your life right now, right? So basically, if I'm going to explain it for the rest of the world, it's like you'll have a family gathering, and would you invite someone from outside of your family, outside of your culture, to come to that family gathering? That is the thought there. How did you get your lifetime invitation to the cookout, Ricky? What did you do?
Well, it really was, it was Eric, it was Aaron, it was Mill, who plays Paris in the film, and then Mercedes. It was all these folks, but one by one, to give Eric credit, he was the first one that said, if you're going to come around, you got to stay around, and so I remember the first time I went down to Fletcher Street, he made me get up on a horse. He said, that's the first thing you got to do. You got to prove that you can stay up on a horse, which that was my first time on a horse ever, and I'm walking a horse between parked cars. Terrifying, by the way, but I definitely did it. And then he'd invite me to the barbecue. We would just hang out. But I was well aware of what it meant to be entrusted to be telling that story, and why. When I approached Greg, I said, collectively, we love your book. I loved a lot of things about the book. One, I loved the characters, the way that there was an end to the story. But I think it was going to be most helpful for the community that it was a fictionalized tale, that way we could incorporate a fuller body, like the legacy of Fletcher Street and all the cowboys and cowgirls. It was helpful for them to have this framework where we weren't trying to do like a documentary about current day. And so the process became really beautiful because all these voices became additive. And the more that they influenced the adaptation, the more I felt like it was going to be true and authentic in my delivery of it. Yeah. Because I said this to Eric and Mill, who are my closest collaborators, that, I know I can direct, I know I can write, I know I have those talents, but I have not lived your story. So I need to be a conduit for those, for all those tales. And, so it was from sitting around a barbecue to, Aaron took me to the auction to, literally introducing me to anyone and everyone who I could sit and lend an ear to. And that part of it was, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 years of that. It was so beautiful, and I love to see.
You did a lot of work getting into that cookout.
This is before Idris Elba knew. Yeah. This is before Idris Elba knew who I was, by the way.
I want to know from Aaron's point of view, like what it was like from you having other people come in, try to tell these stories.
We're pretty much used to it. You see people come through all of the time, and they get their little product or tell this little short story, and they give you a check. They don't really care. So when I met Ricky, I'm like, okay, here we go again. So but it wasn't like getting to know him and what they were about, and you could tell they were really genuine with everything they were doing, and they really cared to even try to help take the next step, because these riders and everything that the community sees, we don't have a voice. So him telling our story and putting us out there means the world to us, because it is an unforgotten culture that's in the process of being wiped away as we speak. So Ricky, Dan, the whole neighborhood family, they always have a cookout card, and they opened up their personal doors to us, to their offices, their homes. So they're an amazing group of guys.
Greg, you've got to tell me this. Matteo Neri is watching this show right now. I am guessing he's a relative. Such a great movie, especially right now. So congrats, Ricky, and of course my bro. Is he your brother? But this is
my brother.
Aaron. Aaron, can you talk about how many kids are involved in riding and talk about the funding needed? Aaron, I'm just going to put up this here, raising money for a permanent stable. If you watch the movie, you'll see the cowboys and the cowgirls. They lose their home, but they say, we never lose our family. Like, we are family. Right. But if you look here, and we're posted as well on Ajstream's Twitter page, raising money for a permanent stable so that you can support the real-life cowboys and cowgirls of Philadelphia. Ricky, Greg, Aaron, it's been fun riding with you today. Thank you so much. YouTubers, thank you for the questions. The #1 hit film on Netflix, right here on my laptop, Concrete Cowboy. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.